Nope. Nope. Oh, that's a bad crash. Yeah, it's getting crazy. All right, welcome back. So, I got to go through the shocks and the diffs. We're going to tighten up the rear diff. I'm probably going to tighten up the front diff as well. As you hear, the diffs are really, really soft. And in the crash yesterday, ended up bending the bar, so I'm going to have to hammer this straight again. It's cracked now, so some repairs to the wheelie bar are definitely going to be necessary before the next run, which kind of sucks. This wheelie bar has been taking a beating. But it's got a S shape now, which is not good. Probably asking yourself, why is he taking out the 4 screws? As you see, the wheelie bar is not supposed to be that way. So I'm going to hammer this straight back to normal, and I'm probably going to have to weld this. So with that done, I'm going to throw a couple of screws in this just to keep the chassis down. Just to keep the diff down, I mean. Because I got to get out these 3 screws to get the bumper off. Alright, I had to grab a ratchet so I can get in here and get these screws off without having to take the whole rest of the thing apart. Might have to loosen this up. There we go. Ooh, that is awfully dry in there. There is grit, but that is grit. So here's our diff. God, that's terrible. It literally feels like Antiseize. I don't expect there to be anything in here. Probably something I should have done a long time ago. But I was going for the open diff deal, and there is a shim. That's flared out so much I can't get the shim off. There we go. There is fluid in there. So I'm going to let this drain, get my whole diff repair stuff out. So I'm going to let this drain inside my tub. And we'll be back. All right. So, watching RC Guy Garage's fire team. What is that? His fire team 100-mile-an-hour build. He's doing some testing with it today. So I'm watching that while wrenching, because that's what I do. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the yellow Limitless. Got an update on it. Got a text message from the guy. Sent me a picture. He finally got back from vacation. And he unboxed the Limitless, the yellow Limitless finally. He's got an all right t-shirt with it as well that he must have purchased. All right. So I've got a couple different fluids here. Should probably turn these upside down since they're so thick. RC Guy Garage having a breakdown on camera. Go check him out if you guys haven't. I'm sure you guys all know who he is. Guy, don't demonetize me. Alright. I'm just, so I do have a little bit of 50K, not much left. I've got 30K and 60K. I think I'm gonna go with this 60K. That's about what I'm looking for. Not solid, because a lot of these are solid. I definitely don't want it solid, but I want it thick. Thicker than I would normally run. Normally the thickest I would go on a rear diff is the 47.5. I usually like to run about a 30K in the rear. So I'm gonna let this stuff sink in there. We're gonna keep topping it off, and then let me get this fluid cleaned off. This is, if you guys don't know, this is my Arma Differential Graveyard. I call it my graveyard because the EXB had so many issues with differentials that I ended up having to buy complete differentials, tear it down, build them up. And then I had bought a used version 2 Creighton, and it had diff issues because it had like Italian diffs in the front and some other diff in the back. They didn't match up to the tooth ratio. So every time I ran it, it would break. I would take it apart and I would buy that diff ratio, because I would go to the parts store, to the hobby shop with the diffs that broke and buy those diffs. Well, I would break rear, and then I would break front, and then I would break rear. Until I learned, when I pulled them both apart at the same time, I realized that they're the wrong diffs, wrong ratios. So it took a couple sets of diffs for that as well. The EXP, I think I went through 8 differentials. Even locking a set of rear diffs, and it seemed to be mainly the rear diff, And what I learned over time is that it really wasn't the differential, it was the rear cover getting loose. And every time I would buy one, I would buy it as a complete assembly with these housings. And it turned out once I went to an aluminum rear diff case, no more diff issues. A lot of people are saying, Earl, you're shimming them wrong, this and that. It had nothing to do with that. One hard landing with it, and the diff would put a lot of pressure on the rear cover. It would get loose, it would pull away from the pinion back there, and then it would strip. And everything was junk at that point, including the rear cover. So, I did a bunch of videos on that, on what I found, and Bars and Tone was actually the one telling me, hey Earl, you got to get the rear diff case. The grease that's in here is literally like rock. I don't know what kind of grease this is, but it's literally turned into a rock. I might have been in here because there are shims in here. And there's a lot of grease in here, so maybe I added Antiseize or something. I don't know, but it's definitely rock hard. Which, definitely not putting Antiseize in here. I think I got that from Chef Beardsley. Was saying, hey, yeah, just run Antiseize. But from what I'm seeing, definitely looks like Antiseize turns to a rock, kind of like it does on brake calipers. But it won't seize up. It'll just turn hard, and then as it heats up, it'll break down. But I think brakes get a lot hotter than these differentials. So definitely use a multi-grease instead of what I think I did here. Is I put a bunch of Antiseize in there. But I'm going to let this settle, and it's starting to settle now. You can see the big air bubbles. This is going to help out tremendously. And somebody was saying, why are you overfilling your diffs? Arma fills them only 3/4 of the way or halfway on purpose, and I realize that. But when you fill up a diff, it's actually to the top, it's actually using that fluid to give it some sort of resistance. If you fill it up less than that, it'll still use the fluid, it'll just act like a thinner fluid because it's going to start mixing with air that's in there. So the whole purpose of us letting it settle and get fluid into it is to get the air out. So, in my experience, you know, it doesn't need it, because even a rear differential in a car, because of the way it sits, the fluid will sit at the bottom, and then it'll spin around in there and just grab fluid and lubricate everything. I'm not trying to use it as lubrication, I'm trying to use the fluid as, say, rear differential clutches on a limited slip. We're trying to make it act like tighter clutches. So when you do that on a race rear end, you add another clutch pack in there, you smash them together, you make it tighter. So I get why Arma's only putting a little bit of fluid in it, but that's not what I do. The reason I put so much fluid in it is I'm using the fluid as resistance to tighten up the differential and act like clutches. So, but people out there, you're welcome to do things your way, and if it works for you, great. This is the way I do it. There's logic behind it because I relate everything with RC to real cars. Even the 12-volt system that's in here. I relate most of this stuff along with the game changer fans and all that stuff, voltage regulator that we put in it. I relate all that to automotive. Even the ESC and the motor in here, we have stuff like that in cars nowadays with our air conditioning. There's no longer like 3 or 4 speeds to your blower motor. They're all, or even your fuel pump. Your fuel pump has a like an ESC controller. They're brushless now, and the pumps are like motors. So there is a controller, and there's a fuel pump motor that's in your tank that's controlled just like an ESC on an RC car. So all this stuff I know because I'm an automotive technician. So I apply a lot of what I learn from that to my RC cars. Now with brushless pumps and brushless, controllers for automotive, when we put superchargers on, that kind of stuff, we actually reprogram the controller to put out more fuel pressure. We trick it into spinning faster instead of at 12 or 14 volts like Kenny Bell does using a booster pump. We can run it at 18 volts, not having an issue with it. So these are just things, experience, 35 plus years working in automotive that I've learned. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to let this settle, get the diff cover put back on, which you don't need to see me watch, and then we're going to go ahead and throw this thing back together. We'll be right back. All right, so I got the differential installed. I also do have a shim right here on this side to tighten it up. So we're going to install some bearing grease, disc brake, high temperature bearing grease. Yes, I'm a little sloppy with the grease. I'd rather have more grease than no grease. And I stick some on the cover as well. And even if it gets around the edges, which I'll clean off, that's okay, because what it ends up doing is it creates a barrier around the edge so dirt can't get in. Then I'll go ahead and stick this back on, getting it. Oh, gotta be careful with that shim. Making sure that the shim didn't pop out and that the cover is sealed. Great. I'm gonna have to take that off because I don't want to loosen the cover again and fight with the shim. And then we're going to go ahead and put bolts back in. Always starting, I start with the side that has the shim, because those shims do have a hard time lining up and getting the cover on. Definitely don't over tighten these. There's only 4 bolts that hold them on. And you don't want to strip these. So now, a lot stiffer. As you see, it's turning all the wheels when I turn one side, and that's because it's got more drive. Than the front. See? That's diffing out left to right. That's how you know it's turning the motor and the front. So we're going to have more drive off the rear, and I am going to do the front. So I'm going to get this buttoned up. You guys already see how I've done it. I'm going to go ahead and do the front, which you guys don't need to see. And then I'm going to glue up the tires one more time. But the guy who got the Limitless, hope you enjoy it. You know, we're going to put an update out there so everybody knows you got it. I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, show a picture. He sent me a picture of him receiving it and finally unboxing it. He was on vacation for a little while, so he's just getting it, even though it's been there a week. He's just unboxing it, getting it ready now. But there we go. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.